Hello everybody and welcome to Ian's Bricks. So I'd like to talk about my recent day trip to the Lego house in Billund in Denmark. I'd actually been to the Lego house a couple of years ago. I spent a week in Denmark. I drove over in my car, which is a very long drive. Had a really nice week in Denmark itself. I stayed near the west coast in a lovely lodge, which was really nice, and spent a couple of days going to Billund in Denmark to the Lego house, which was the main purpose of going. And one of the reasons why you want to go to the Lego house is obviously the experience there of the house itself. You've got the attraction inside, you've got the mini chef, which I'd wanted to go to, and also of course you can buy exclusive sets like these sets here, which I've got behind me. This is what I bought back from my most recent trip. So that was 2 years ago. I'd wanted to go back, and I'd noticed that there were flights, Ryanair flights from London Stansted Airport, and what's interesting is there are other flights available to Billund from the UK. You can fly with Lufthansa, British Airways. They tend to be quite expensive, and you can also fly with Ryanair from both Manchester and Edinburgh, but they do only do one flight a day. But for whatever reason at the moment they are doing 3 flights a day from London Stansted to Billund in Denmark. Now the times do vary, so I've had a look later in the year. There are some days where they fly out about 10 o'clock, get there about 12:30 in the afternoon, and come back really late at night. But for whatever reason the flights in March were almost perfect. An early flight in the morning, it gave you time to spend the day in the Lego house and then get back, but not too late, because my problem is I live a good sort of 2.5, nearly 3 hours drive away from Stansted Airport, so I had to factor that in. There are no flights unfortunately from local airports, which would have been Bournemouth or Southampton for me, so I did have to look a little bit further afield for flights and things like that. So once I'd figured out there were flights there, I was thinking, when is the best time to go to the Lego house? What was interesting was, after doing a bit of research with Ryanair flights, I'd noticed that the prices, and I looked at these in around January time, the flights were very cheap all the way up until sort of Easter time, when the Legoland theme park opens in Denmark, and you tend to find that for the rest of the year the prices are significantly higher. Plus also Ryanair did have some kind of promotion on as well. So I managed to get my return flights from London Stansted to Billund in Denmark for £34, £17 each way, which is, even now, is incredibly cheap. Ryanair are renowned for having very cheap flights, but even these days with extra fees and costs and things like that, flights do tend to be a little bit more expensive. So yeah, for a very cheap flight, I just thought this is a perfect opportunity to go to Billund in Denmark, because I wanted to buy some sets. I specifically wanted to get myself a copy of this wonderful set here, the pirate tribute, and that came out last year, and as soon as that came out I thought I really must have one of those sets. So I did buy myself, I wanted to buy myself one of those. So that was sort of the main purpose of going, but also I did want to go back and experience the Lego house again, because it had been a couple of years since I'd actually been. So once I'd figured out the flight logistics of things, I booked some flights. A friend of mine, Duncan, was also interested in going. I'd mentioned to him just sort of in the off chance, and he was very interested in coming as well. So I booked tickets for both of us at the same time, and the only thing that I did, which I'll talk about a little bit more later, is I wanted obviously to make sure I could bring lots of Lego back. Ryanair have very strict policies about how big your bags are and how much you can bring back. So what I actually did is I went for, on the way there, just to have a free basically rucksack, a very small rucksack you can take on as hand luggage, and on the way back I actually paid £21, which I booked at the time of the flight. You have to do it at the time of the flight to get it cheaper, to get a large bag to bring home. Now, so the idea is that when I got to the Lego house, I could fill this bag with all the Lego that I took, put it in the cargo hold on the way back. Hopefully it wouldn't get damaged, and that would be okay, because obviously you can't take too much onto the plane. But yeah, as I found out later, that wasn't necessarily the best option to take. So we've got the flight sorted out. That's the main thing. So On the day itself, that did mean me getting up really, really early in the morning to set off to drive. So I think I set off around about 2:15 in the morning. So I didn't get much sleep the night before. I think I went to bed really early, but still had to wake up about 1:30 to sort of get myself ready. So that was the only downside. Now I know what you're saying. Yes, Ian, you could have gotten a hotel near the airport, or even gone the day before on a flight and stayed in Denmark. I could have done that, but that all bumps the cost up. And one of the points about doing this is I wanted to do it as cheap as possible to see whether it is actually worthwhile. Can you go to the Lego house, buy some of the exclusive sets, and possibly, like I would want to do, I wanted to build one, but to sell the rest of the sets on that you're able to get to cover the cost of the trip and any other costs involved. So that was sort of the main plan, really, was to try and be able to buy enough stuff to be able to do that. So there are other costs involved. Obviously, it costs petrol to get from here to Stansted, which cost me around about £40 in petrol, which I did actually pay for. Duncan did offer, my friend Duncan did offer to pay, but he said he'd pay for the meal in Denmark instead, so that kind of worked out fine. And there's also parking costs to pay. Stansted Airport is really expensive, as I think most airports are. It was basically £50 to park for a day. Now there are cheaper ways of doing it. I could have stayed, for example, in a village just down the road, a place called Bishop Stortford, or a couple of other smaller villages as well. You can park near the train station for about £5 a day on a Saturday, and then get a train in to Stansted, which takes you right into the heart of the airport, which is also was a feasible thing. I think if I was on my own, I probably would have done that to save myself more costs. But as it was, there were two of us. We split the cost of the parking, £25 each. It's still expensive, but it kind of made it more worthwhile. So there was that cost to factor in as well. And the other thing, I've talked about bags and things like that. So I did only take one small bag with me. It's just down. I would show, because it's quite a very small rucksack. Inside that bag, of course, what I needed to do is put in my larger bag. So what I did was I'd been on eBay and I bought this rather interesting thing here, which is just a foldable bag with some wheels on the bottom. It expands quite a lot. It expands quite big. This actually only cost me £12. There are loads of people that sell these kind of bags, but you have to be careful about the size. This actual size of the bag was the length and width of it. It's actually too big for Ryanair's policy size bag for the small rucksack you can take on the flight. But of course, you put it on sideways in the bag, it kind of works out. And obviously on top of that as well, I wanted to put in some cardboard boxes, flattened cardboard boxes, so I had something to protect the Lego sets on the way home, and some bubble wrap as well, which kindly my friend Duncan put the bubble wrap in his bags. Just I wanted extra protection for the sets on the way back. So there's all this kind of thing to think about protecting the sets. As it turned out, I probably didn't need to do all of this, but that's just me being sort of overcautious really about how to do these kind of things. Anyway, back to the journey itself. Sorry, I'm digressing here. So we got into the airport. Now, what I will say, Stansted is quite a busy airport. It's always classed as London Stansted, but if anybody knows where Stansted is in the UK, it's miles from London. It's a long, long way. It's closer to Cambridge than it is London, so it is quite a long way from London. The drive in the morning was absolutely fine. It was very, very early, no traffic at all. One of the motorways was closed, but that's fine. I managed to skirt that. So we got there plenty on time. I think we arrived about 5 AM in the morning. The airport was already reasonably busy. I don't think they start flights from Stansted until 6 in the morning, so you tend to find there is kind of a bit of a rush first thing in the morning. So the airport was fairly busy, but we were there in plenty of time. Being the first flight of the day, I think this Ryanair flight, I think it was fine. You tend not to find, you don't find delays. The weather was perfect, no weather issues as well. I was thinking maybe early March, it might be a storm, it might be raining, who knows, but actually it was absolutely fine. So everything was going for us. Airport, plenty of time, got through security, that always takes time, into the airport lounge, and we sort of soon realised that the flight that we were on was not many people on it at all. I did wonder how many people would be on this flight, and the answer really was not very many people at all. To keep costs down, with Ryanair, you have to be quite savvy, and one of the things they try and do is they'll charge you for anything. One of the things they do is if you don't you can pre-book your seat, but it costs you money. And I think the cheapest pre-booked seat you can buy, I think, was around about £8. So if you want to sit together, then it costs you sort of £16 for 2 people each way to do that. It's like an extra £32 down the drain. So I went for the stingy sit wherever option, and it's just really odd how Ryanair work this out, because when I checked in for the flight, you can check in online, you would have thought 2 people booking at the same time, and it did warn you on the website you won't be sat together, but there was no rhyme nor reason why their system wouldn't put us together and why it would separate us so much just for the sake of proving a point that that's what they're telling you they can do. So I just found that a little bit odd, because we got sat in 2 completely different seats. Duncan was on row 5, but all by himself, and he'd been given the aisle seat, but there was nobody sat in the middle seat or the window seat. I was sat in 11B, there was a woman in 11C, nobody in the window seat, but then there were aisles across the road with no people in whatsoever. It just seemed absolutely ridiculous. So that's just a weird Ryanair thing, but yeah, again, to save money, I didn't want to pay for the privilege of having to sit in a seat that they, allocated seat, not that it particularly mattered. So that's another way that I saved money there. Anyway, the flight itself was very, very uneventful. So once we'd actually set off, I realised there was some spare rows. The lady next to me actually got up to go to the toilet as soon as the seatbelt signs went off. I just got up and moved all my stuff, moved into the empty row, had a row to myself with a window seat, which was great. Yeah, the journey itself, it took just over an hour. It really wasn't a long flight at all. You fly over the North Sea, you can sort of see the tip of the Netherlands to the right hand side as you flew out. There's a little bit of cloud around, but it was very pleasant, and then you sort of hit Denmark and you sort of go over Esbjerg and then fly down into Billund, and it was a really, really easy flight. I said the weather was fine. As you come into land in Billund, it's great, because we actually saw on the right hand side there was a theme park and you could see the Lego house. The airport is very, very close to Billund town centre. Billund is a very, very small town really, so there's not a lot there, and the airport I think is probably the biggest and the mainest thing there, along with of course all the Lego stuff. Once we arrived at the airport, you just go through passport control. Again, that was easy because there were so few people on the flight, it just didn't take long. And there we were in the airport. Taxis were waiting. We decided to get a taxi. You can get a bus from the airport to the Lego house. I don't know how much that costs, but we didn't have any Danish kroner with us. We didn't really see the point of changing money to buy kroner when we could probably just use our cards these days. You can use cards everywhere, and that's how it worked. The taxis accepted card payments, which Duncan kindly paid for the taxis, both there and back. The cost of the taxi was 170 Danish kroner. That works out at around £13 for each way. So I think that's not a bad price to pay. It just saved a lot of faffing about and hassle. It was fairly chilly that day, so I didn't particularly want to stand hanging around for a bus and things like that. And it just took us right up to the door of the Lego house. Now I think the Lego house opens at 10, and because everything was so early and on time, everything just worked so well, we were actually in the Lego house for about 10:15, which was crazy. I thought we wouldn't probably get there, to go through passport control and stuff like that. It would take till at least 11 o'clock, but no, we were there for around about 10:15. Again, the times of the flights in early March were just perfect. They just worked really, really well. And then once we got into the Lego house, we'd actually paid to go into the Lego house itself, the attraction. So in the Lego house, when you go in, you can walk into the building for free. There's the shop on the right hand side if you're going through the main entrance. It's free to get in there, and you've also got like a seating area and some toilets at the back, and there's a little cart selling food and drink, and there's the mini chef in the corner. All of that you can get in for completely free. It's only the actual paid part of the attraction, which you go through some little gates and you go upstairs. It's mainly the upstairs and some of the downstairs as well that is the actual Lego house attraction. So we'd actually both paid, I think it was just over £30, about £31 each. The price of that does vary, so if you go on a midweek out of school holidays, it is cheaper. I think we paid 280 Danish kroner. I think during the week it goes down to about 240, so it's a little bit cheaper if you're on Monday to Friday. again, the price goes up again. It's over 300 kroner if you go during school holidays, so around Easter time it is more expensive. So again, depending when you go will depend how much it costs you to get into the Lego house. Now, of course, you don't have to pay to go into the Lego house while you're there. I think if I went again maybe next year, I probably wouldn't go into the Lego house again, just because I've been twice now and not too much changes. It's good and I enjoyed it, don't get me wrong. It's definitely worth a visit, but I've done it twice now and I just don't think that much would change if I went back in a year or so's time too much. The beauty about having a pass to get into the Lego house, you get a little wristband that you put on, but it's like this thing that you sort of tap on things and things happen for you. But they had some lockers. Now you can only use the lockers if you have one of these wristbands and entry to the Lego house. Because we had bags and things, it was great. We just took our bags and coats off, shoved them in these lockers. I think we did buy some Lego early on as well. Cram the Lego. I mean, these lockers were big, but we kind of both filled them up with Lego and bags and stuff like that. So it's really, really useful to have those lockers available. And there were plenty to choose from as well, plenty for everybody. So, but as I say, if you aren't going into the Lego house attraction, then you won't have one of those. And if you do have bags, you'll probably have to carry them round. Yeah, we spent the day there. It was really, really good. We went to the mini chef as well. That's good, but again, quite expensive. A nice experience, but I think it certainly was over £50 for the two of us. So food and drink in Denmark isn't particularly cheap. I think if you live outside of Scandinavian countries, especially Denmark, Norway, Sweden, those kind of places, things do tend to be quite expensive. I know that I can remember that the drinks were fairly pricey as well. I know I've been to Denmark a few times over the years. I went to Copenhagen a few years ago and I bought this huge glass of, a rather large glass of, I think it was just Coke or Diet Coke, and it worked out at about £6, and that was 7 or 8 years ago. So it is quite an expensive country if you're not from Denmark. So just bear that in mind if you're travelling there, that things tend to be a little bit more expensive over there, but the quality is very, very good. So while we were there, obviously we went into the Lego house, and one of the main things was, of course, was to go into the Lego shop. The Lego shop, it's not the biggest in the world, I have to say. There are bigger Lego shops out there, and it's got all the usual things that you would normally expect from a Lego shop. All the usual sets are in there, but of course they have the exclusive Lego house sets as well. And that was the main purpose for me for really going. I wanted to get myself one of these pirates, and I'll just get the box out. I've actually built it already. I'll show you it in a moment, but this is the box. It's nice and empty at the moment because it's not full of anything, but this is just a set that I was really after from day one. This is the number 4 limited edition of all the Lego house sets, and I do actually have at least one of each of all of the other sets. But this is number 4 that they released last year. These cost 599 Danish kroner, and that works out at around about just under 70 UK pounds. You have to be careful about how much Lego you buy if you're from the UK, because now we're not in the EU. Thank you, Brexit. That does mean that you are limited to taking home up to £390 worth of stuff that you buy. So you have to be careful that you don't overspend, because you would have to just pay the excess tax on that once you arrive back in the UK. But that can be quite expensive. So the trick is to not go over your quota of £390 per person. I was very, very close to it, but I did make sure I didn't go over. So yeah, I'd actually went to the shop twice. So I think I went early on in the morning, and they had a couple of sets here. So we have the duck, which I did actually buy before, 40501, and I've actually built this set, and I bought a few of these last time I was here. But for whatever reason, they had some signed ones, and I saw these on the shelves, and not all of them were signed. I'm thinking, I'm having one of those before they disappear, and I'm glad I did, because when I went back in the afternoon they'd all gone. Again, this set is 599 Danish kroner, around about just under £70, so quite a lot of money. It's quite a small set. It really isn't a very large set, but I have had a look on eBay and sold ones of these particular sets. Again, there's not many to go off eBay sale prices, but around about £140, £150 seems the going rate for a signed copy of one of these. So really pleased to get myself one of these. And also they had the new set out as well. which is this building systems, it's called. 40505 is the set number. They'd actually had a launch day, I think it was the 29th of February. I was thinking, oh, shall I go to that? And I thought, no, I'll not go to that. I'll go later in the month, because it was a midweek. I would have had to take time off work and all this kind of stuff. But luckily for me, again, they had them signed by the designers. So there's 2 designers on this one, and yeah, I'm really pleased to get this. I'm half tempted to build this because it did look like a nice build, but I think now I've got a signed one, I can probably hold off, because this will be on sale for 2 or 3 more years at least, so I could potentially go back and get another one of those. But you can see all the different sets that they've ever done from the Lego house on the back. You've got the duck, which is still available. The brick moulding machine isn't available anymore. I do have a couple of those still. They're going up in price quite nicely. We have the Dagny Home set here, which doesn't seem to be that popular. I do have one of those as well. We've got the Pirate, which you've just seen as well, and the brand new set as well, the systems, the building system set. So yeah, nice to get one of those. Again, these do seem to be selling on eBay. Now this is a bit more expensive. This is 699 Danish kroner, which works out at about £80. It is a bigger set than the duck, but it's still more expensive than the Pirate. So it's interesting that they seem to put the prices up for these particular sets, because I know the brick moulding machine, that was a much bigger box. You got a huge box, and that was only 599 kroner. So they seem to be putting the prices up of these new sets, so bear that in mind. But yeah, nice to get a signed one. They seem to be selling for around about 120-ish, maybe £130 on eBay, the signed ones. So that should be interesting to see how that goes as and when I get round to selling that. And of course I got 2 more Pirates as well, so they're both going to be sealed, and the idea is that I'll be selling those on at some of my brick fairs and brick festivals, probably later on this year. But yeah, these do sell the Pirates for around about £140, so you can pretty much double your money on those here in the UK, just because of the lengths that you have to go go all the way to Denmark to get them. So yeah, very, very nice set. Anyway, so back to the actual Lego house itself. So once the day was done, what I had to do is I had to start faffing around, putting my boxes together, putting these Lego sets into the boxes. So what I managed to do, because I've got the 4 big sets, these 3 here and this one here, they all went in the boxes with the bubble wrap and then into this big bag that I talked about before, and then this little one here just went in my rucksack at the back. Now Duncan was a bit more savvy than me, and he was very much thinking, actually, I'll just carry them in my rucksack. So he had a slightly bigger rucksack than me, which I have to say, Ryanair didn't even check. I think because the flight was half empty, they just weren't bothered at all. Ryanair can be notorious for checking bag sizes and things, but I think on a half empty flight, they just weren't bothered at all. And also, one thing I noted as well, that the flight was run by, although we were on a Ryanair plane, the flights were run by Malta Air, so I didn't quite understand why Malta were flying from UK to Denmark on a Ryanair flight. I didn't quite get the link there, but they did say that a few times on the flight. It's a Ryanair flight, run by Malta Air. So what that was all about, I think these flights may be subsidised by somebody somewhere, maybe by the Danish government, maybe by Lego, who knows, but they wouldn't be doing 3 flights a day, which are all a quarter full at this time of year. There'd be no point in doing them if you're not making money on them. So I think somewhere along the line, these flights are probably subsidised to keep them going and things like that. So yeah, I was very, very savvy, careful about not overusing my baggage allowance. Duncan literally had 2 big sets, put them both in his big rucksack, and his rucksack was quite hefty as well. The other ones he just carried in a Lego bag, and actually that was the way to do it, because most people at the airport, a few people had done the same as us, gone on a flight there and back on the same day, and they just all had Lego bags, and they were just allowed straight on the plane, no questions asked. And one of the reasons I think is because there is a Lego shop in the airport in Billund. They don't give you a separate different duty-free bag or anything, they just give you a Lego bag. So if you buy Lego there, then it's actually, they just carry on a Lego bag. So, and there's no distinction between the Lego bags at all. So people were going on with massive Lego bags, and Ryanair didn't even bat an eyelid. Now, I'm not saying that later in the year, if you go on a busy bank holiday weekend, lots of people going to Legoland, that they might be a bit more picky about what bags they can get onto the plane. But this particular flight, because it was early in March, Legoland theme park wasn't open, not many people on the flight, Ryanair just weren't bothered. So I could have saved myself the price of buying a bag and the price of the baggage fee by actually just carrying the bags on myself. live and learn. I'll know that for next time if I do that at a similar time of year. But just be careful, because Ryanair can be really, really fussy. Another thing that I didn't do, unfortunately, which I could have done, was claim the tax back. Now, I did know about claiming tax back. Tax in Denmark is, I think, around about 20%, so it's reasonably expensive. What you have to do is, when you're at the Lego shop, and I did do this, is you tell them that you want to claim the tax back. They do something, they sort of scan something, they scan your passport, so you'll need your passport in the Lego shop as well. This is in the main Lego house shop. And they'll sort of like give you this receipt. And now what we did is we got to the airport, got in the taxi again, so that was another £13 to the airport. Oh, they called for a taxi, by the way. We literally went to the customer service desk. Staff there are amazingly helpful at the Lego house, and they literally said, "Can you call us a taxi, please, for the airport?" They called one, and within 5 minutes it was there. So yeah, no problems getting a taxi back to the airport. So yeah, once at the airport, I'd got my bag full of Lego. I'd packed it all up with my boxes and bubble wrap, and there's like a self bag check-in, so I did all of that, put my bag through, we went through security, and then we said, well, okay, how do we claim a tax back? So we went up to the desk and said, how do we claim a tax back? Oh, you need to do that before you go through security. And of course I didn't know. So we went back down, and actually Duncan wanted to do this. He'd got all of his sets with him. I'd obviously put mine onto the plane, so I couldn't get mine, and you need the sets with you to claim the money back. So he actually spoke to one of the ladies. They let him back out of security, back into the main airport. He went to the counter, showed him the sets that he got, showed him the receipts. He got a stamp on his receipt. He then had to go all the way back through into security and do the check-in and all that kind of stuff. And then we went back upstairs into the main airport departure lounge, and then he could claim his money back. And after all that faffing around, he got £31 back. So I was kind of like, you know what, I'm really tired. All my stuff's gone anyway. I can't be bothered. I don't know, I probably should have been bothered, but it was a very, very long day. I'd been up really early in the morning, and I was just kind of like, you know what, live and learn. I'll know for next time. But yeah, so if you are going to claim your tax back, you must have all your sets with you at the airport, and you must go to the exchange place, I think it's called Global Exchange, before you go through security and hand any of your bags off to get this stamp on your receipt. So just bear that in mind if you are doing that. Certainly if you're coming from the UK, it's definitely worth doing, but yeah, you just need to remember to do that all before you go through security like we did. Once back in the airport, there was a Lego shop within the airport itself. However, this shop was very expensive. It's supposed to be duty free, but I don't know where they come up with this, because the prices were more expensive than anywhere. They did have a special offer on spend over 600 Danish kroner and you got 20% off, but even with those discounts it just wasn't really worth buying anything. There were one or two sets in there that had retired, but it just really for me wasn't worth it. And also it would have actually taken me over my my spend threshold for back into the UK. So even though it was sort of tax free there, that would still count towards the items me bringing back into the UK. As it was, I'd already spent £372 on all of this stuff and a key ring as well, so it just wasn't worth me going over that extra just to get a couple more sets. Another thing about the Lego shop in the airport is, as far as I was aware, there was an exclusive Billund Airport Lego set that you could actually get. I know people that have gone before that picked up these sets. They were limited to 2 per person, I think. And I literally went in, I had a look around, I couldn't see these sets, and I asked the lady, I said, do you have the Billund Airport set? She says, oh no. She says, we sold out of those quite a while ago and we don't have any more left. So that was it. She says, you're the 5th person today to ask me about the Lego Airport set. And I'm thinking, well, it's what people are going for. They're going for exclusive sets, aren't they? You know, they're not going to pay ridiculous prices for Lego when they've just spent the day in Lego and all of these sets are just across the road for like a third of the price less. So yeah, I mean, this woman was so dying to sell people Lego, trying to be a saleswoman, but nobody was buying anything because it was such a rip-off. So yeah, that was slightly disappointing. I couldn't get the Billund Airport set, but never mind, it was one of those things. The airport itself was a really nice little airport. There was a couple of eating places, and although we didn't eat there, the food looked really, really nice. I know sometimes in airports they can be busy and the food not so good, but I have to say the food looked very, very good. And again, we were quite early for the flight. The flight on the way home, absolutely fine, about a quarter full again. Again, we both got allocated stupid seats where we were sat in the middle, and yet we had a whole row to ourselves. So it was ridiculousness with Ryanair. I don't know why they do that, but we got a row each, I think, on the way. But I think Duncan might have been sat with somebody else, but I was all right. I had a row to myself. And again, the flight back was on time. In fact, it was early. And I was a little bit concerned because I know Stansted can get very, very busy with incoming flights in the evening. I did it a few years ago, and sometimes there can be some quite big queues. If you hit a time when lots of flights come in at the same time, it takes a while. But no, we arrived, sort of waltzed into the airport passport area. There's got this huge queuing system, which nobody was there. Rows and rows of these automatic things. You just put your passport on this reader, it scans it, you sort of look into this bright light, and it lets you through. As we walked into that area, I needed the loo, needed the restroom, so I did that, and then came out, found out where the carousel was for my bag. My bag was waiting there. Again, everything just worked so well, and we went through, nothing to declare because I'd obviously not overspent, and that was that. And then it was just a case of getting something to eat and then driving home. So I didn't get home until about 11:30 in the evening. So it was a very, very long day. I did sleep very, very well that night. But the whole journey went very, very well. There's probably a couple of things I've forgotten to mention. I think that's pretty much it, actually. I'm just having a look at my notes here to see if there's anything else I've forgotten. Is it something I would do again? Yes, definitely. There are things I would do differently. I would probably next time not bother booking for a bag on the way back. I would just risk it, take a slightly larger rucksack, and also just sort of carry the rest of the Lego items, if they don't fit in the rucksack, in a Lego bag, because that seems to work, especially on a quieter flight. I think if I did this again, I would definitely do it early in the year, maybe at the start of the year in March after the new Lego house set is released, because they tend to release around about March, although some of them have been later, but flights certainly later on in the year. Once you get to April, May, I've had a look even today, and flights in April and May, you know, flights out to sort of £50, flights back can be about £15–20 still, but they're not quite as cheap, and there's no promotion at the moment either. So again, you know, you can get cheap flights out there, but you know, even now some of the later flights later in the year are slightly more expensive. I also looked at flights for sort of October, November, out of school holidays, and they're around about £29 each way at the moment. So again, if you are going to go, maybe go out of season when the Legoland theme park isn't open and kids are at school. Go during the week as well, would be a little bit cheaper, but also keep an eye out for those deals, because you can get some really, really cheap flights. And of course, what was the main purpose of going to the Lego house? For me anyway, the main purpose was I wanted to get my hands on this set here, and I do actually have the set. I built it over a couple of days ago. I'll just pull it out of here. There we are. This is the set. And I have to say, I'm really, really pleased to get this. As soon as I saw this come out, I thought, I really, really want that set. And I thought, shall I buy one on the secondary market? I thought, no, I can go to Lego one day and get one. And I'm really, really pleased. I say the build itself was kind of fairly normal. There's a buildable minifigure, an upscale minifigure that you can buy, the one with the red top and the blue trousers. You can buy that from any Lego shop for £40. So the build was very, very similar, but there were quite a few subtle differences. Obviously, we have the peg leg here, and we have all the interesting features on the front here, and the hat. And this all moves, and I have to say it's really, really good. I had great fun building this the other day. I was quite busy at work last week, so I didn't have time to build it during the week, but I got down to Friday and started building this, and it was absolutely brilliant. So I'm really pleased that I managed to get one of these, and hopefully what I will be able to do is probably sell most of these sets on at upcoming brick fairs and festivals, make a little bit of profit. And what I've worked out is if I sell the sets for about what they're going for on sold eBay prices approximately, I would make back around about £550 if I could sell these 4 sets that I haven't opened on the secondary market. Now, everything that I did on this particular trip The flights were £34. The bag for the baggage on the Ryanair flight was £21. Petrol was £40. We got parking, which I paid half of, which was £25. We have the bag, which I bought from eBay for £12. There was entry to the Lego house, which was £31. That's a total of £163. I know there's no food and drink there, but my friend Duncan kindly paid for that, so thank you very much, Duncan. That kept my costs down as well. I think if I went next time, I certainly wouldn't go to the Lego chef. It's a nice thing to do, but yeah, I've done that twice again now, and it's like, it's nice, but it's a bit expensive. And also the sets that you see behind me, the 5 sets that I bought, cost me a total of £372. So I was just under that threshold for the tax and having something to declare here in the UK, which is £390. So that all worked out very well. So the total spend of the whole trip, including everything, including all the sets and everything I bought, was £535. So if I can basically make my money back with selling these sets, hopefully with around about £550. What I would do there is, it meant I would pretty much get that set for free, and then all the other sets will cover the whole cost of the journey and the experience as well. There are ways of obviously making it cheaper if I don't pay for bags and things like that as well. So there is a potential to sort of be able to do one of these trips, sell these sets on and make sort of enough money to cover the whole trip, especially if you're not opening sets as well. It did help that I was able to get a couple of signed sets, so that was really lucky for me that these signed sets were on the shelves. They don't always have signed sets on the shelves, but it was interesting as well at the Lego House shop is they did have a couple of other sets as well. There was a Disney castle, a couple of other Disney sets as well, and they'd all been signed by the designers. So keep an eye out for those sets if you are ever in the Lego house, because they do have them from time to time. It's not just the exclusive sets that get signed, some of the normal average everyday sets get signed as well. So ultimately, hopefully I'll be able to claw back most of the money that I spend, if not all of the money that I spent on this entire trip, by maybe selling these Lego sets on. And I also have to say, the boxes are all in very good condition. I made sure when I picked them off the shelves they were in good condition, and even though I put them through baggage on a plane, because I'd wrapped them up in boxes and cellophane in bubble wrap, sorry, it did mean that they were all protected, and that was all fine. Even though it is quite a soft sided bag, this one, as you can see, it's quite flimsy. I think the protection that I used made sure that the boxes were all in very good condition. So yeah, I would definitely do it again. I think this might become an annual thing for me, maybe in early March. I'm sure there's other people thinking about doing similar things as well. Keep an eye out for flights. Flights do chop and change. I know it just so happened that the flights at the time, the timings were perfect, and all this kind of stuff. So it is definitely doable here from the UK, depending where you are. I think if you live anywhere in and around Stansted, it's such a great airport to use for a lot of flights, but certainly to Billund it was great. For me, it's a bit of a drive over to get to Stansted, but I think definitely worth it, because the alternate, either flying from Heathrow with British Airways, it's very expensive. I was looking at flights for April and they were like £220 return, so it's just no comparison when you're paying like £35 for flights. And I'm not saying that next year the flights are going to be that cheap, they probably won't be, but we're just lucky at the time that we were able to get such cheap flights and have such a great trip, and hopefully be able to claw back most of the money to cover all of the costs of that particular trip. But yeah, really pleased. I'm so happy with my Pirate. I think it's really good. I was so pleased to get that, and I know it's disappointing that Lego have made this an exclusive for the Lego house, because it is such a great set. I'm hoping they're going to continue to do similar things like this. I've possibly heard that they might be doing a Spaceman in the near future. I don't know whether that's just rumours or just talk, but if they do something like that, I'm hoping they don't make it a Lego house exclusive, because they've kind of done that with the Pirate, so it would be a shame if they did that in the future. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my ramblings about the my trip to Denmark. If you are going to do something similar to this yourself at some stage, maybe a day trip or maybe a long weekend and go to Legoland as well, do let me know in the comments. It's definitely a place worth visiting, and if you can do it on the cheap like I did by getting cheap flights and buying some sets, bringing them home and hopefully being able to sell them on to cover the cost, then it's an interesting thing to do, and it certainly makes for an interesting experience. But yeah, something that I'd definitely be wanting to do repeat again, maybe next year. I'd probably wait until next March again before I did this kind of thing again, but who knows. But that's pretty much it for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very, very much for watching. If you made it this far, I do appreciate you listening to my ramblings for all this time. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching the video. Take care, and until next time, we'll see you then. Bye for now.